Hello, everyone. Happy holidays. Welcome to Syntax Bytes, the show where I write some code and hang out and have a good time. And it is currently December, so happy holidays. And today I'm going to be doing Debug December. So these are some challenges that are brought to you by Sentry. So it's a series of 24 coding challenges where you get to solve bugs. And a new challenge unlocks each day, and it's going to be raffled off for swag. So anybody that solves challenges has the opportunity to get some cool swag from the Syntax and Sentry shop. We've got a lot of cool stuff here. We restocked for Black Friday. So we have the Webmaster Tee back in stock. We've got the fingerboards. But if you win the giveaway, you get a code, and then you can head over to the Sentry and Syntax swag shop and pick anything you'd like for free. And so today I'm going to be doing the first 5 challenges because it is December 5th. And hopefully it'll be a good time. Now, I've heard the first few are pretty easy, but we'll work through it. Maybe we'll solve it in multiple ways, or maybe talk about why we solved it or how we solved it. And after that, if this doesn't take too long, I'm going to look into the, I think it's Advent of Typescript. It was created by Trash Dev. Is this it? Yes. If we have any extra time, we'll work on this afterwards. And this lets you practice your TypeScript skills with a challenge each day. So we've got some fun stuff planned for you. And this is themed. So the idea about these challenges is you're trying to help the Yeti do some holiday shopping. Or let's read it. So it says, despite popular belief, the Yeti does have a family. After completing holiday shopping in town, the Yeti is on his way home to spread some cheer. Okay, so we're trying to help him get home. A terrible storm has knocked out all the power, leaving the Yeti completely in the dark with no clues as to which way to go. Debug the code and restore the light for the Yeti's path. If you're able to help the Yeti get home, you may receive a gift too. They are quite generous beings. And if you haven't heard of these types of things, essentially every day a new challenge unlocks. And so currently is December 5th, so we're going to do the first 5, and then tomorrow the next one will unlock all the way until December 24th. So that's the plan for today. Welcome in, everyone. Good to see you all. Abdalman, good to see you. Hello, what's up, Musa? And Mr. Cloudtail from South Africa says, let's debug December challenges. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what they have for us. Abdalman says, these are so easy. I'm told that they potentially get harder, but we'll see. And what's up, Murdoch? Welcome in, and Be Mind, good to see you. And thank you to It's Not DG for the follow over on Twitch a few days ago. But let's jump right in. Let's jump right into it. Oh, but I see someone else. Who is that? M4X809, good to see you. What's up, Itakito? Hello, welcome in. All right, let's do the first one. And I'll say this, if you would like to do these yourself, head over to debugdecember.com and mute the stream. Don't listen to me solve them. Use your own skills and also potentially learn some things to try and debug these. But if you get stuck, you can come watch and see how I do it. And I'm going in completely blind, so I haven't done any of these yet. You're going to see my live reactions. But I believe, I don't know if they link it here, but they actually do have let me pull it up. They have a Discord. In the Sentry Discord, there's a whole forum dedicated to the Debug December challenges. So if you come across any issues, you can join the Discord, head over to the Debug December channel, and then they have a discussion thread for each day. So if you do need some help, they're here for you. All right, I see a few more people popping up. Let's say hello to them all, and then we'll get into it. What's up, Marek? Who says CJ looks smart? How do I look smart? But I appreciate that. Thanks for the compliment. What's up, Roast? Good to see you. Says love your content. Appreciate it. Yeah, links in the description. Debugdecember.com. And then Itakito says, do you have any plans of doing Advent of Code this year? I'm going to do it over on the Coding Garden channel. So I haven't been live in like almost 3 weeks on the Coding Garden channel. But if all goes to plan, this weekend, I'm going to go live and do the first 6 Advent of Code challenges, which is something I've done in the past, but I've been super busy with family stuff this year. I used to sit and wait because these challenges unlock at midnight every night. And so the past few years, I would sit there and like wait till I think it's 10 p.m. my time to do the challenge, because the earlier you are to do these challenges over on Advent of Code, the more points that you get. But yeah, I haven't done any of them this year, but I plan to do them over on the Coding Garden channel. Azim says, Debug December is fire. Loving the vibes. Well, thanks, Azim. What's up, Pranab? Good to see you as well. All right. And it's not DG. Hello. All right, let's do it. Day one. Here we go. We're going to see just how easy these are. All right. The Yeti is on the way home to family, but the lights along the path are all broken due to coding bugs. To fix them, a series of JavaScript challenges need to be solved. The first light won't turn on until 2 ingredients are correctly combined for the elixir of eternal snow, ensuring both are properly capitalized and joined with a dash. Okay, so we've got a function brew potion. It takes in 2 arguments, ingredient 1, ingredient 2, which are the any type. I guess we're not really using TypeScript here. That's all right. And then we are ensuring that both ingredients are provided. So if there isn't ingredient 1 and there isn't ingredient 2, then we throw an error. We log them both out. And then we need to combine the ingredients with a dash and capitalize them correctly. I'm smiling because I already see the issue. All right, and we can see some issues right here. So unexpected return, unhandled. The function has returned an unexpected value. Okay, so this is classic. Now, this would have been especially interesting if they didn't already have semicolons in the code, because this is like one of the reasons to like not use automatic semicolon insertion. But the syntax highlighting in the editor is helping us. You may not realize this, but if you put a new line after return, your function doesn't return anything. So the fix likely should just be to put the codes there, and then you can see that it lights up. And that should fix it. So let's try it. Let's run it. We did it. Day one. Sweet. But before we move on, let's review this code. Could we do it any better? Let's see what the chat has to say. Pranav already did days 1 through 5. Nice. Yeah. And the thing is, I think especially if you're newer to JavaScript, you're definitely going to find some learnings in here. But I'll say this: even not being new to JavaScript, I know people that have come across this bug where you. Like a lot of times, especially maybe even like a React app, you put the return there and then maybe your parentheses are on this line and you got some like JSX or something like that. That function is going to return undefined because there's nothing on that line there. All right, let's make this code simpler. So there is the char at method. Surprisingly, I've taught a lot of people JavaScript and I've reviewed a lot of code. People are unaware that you actually can use bracket notation on strings in JavaScript. So this is another way to do it. We could use bracket notation to grab that first character. And then slice 1 is removing the first value from the string. But there's a few other methods built into JavaScript. There's like substr and substring that can also remove or like give you a substring of the string. Let's look up substr. I always forget Is it something like this? Substr? Yeah, it's this one. There's substr, and then okay, I see it. Substr is deprecated, substring is not. It's okay, so don't use this one. Don't use substr, but there is substring, which also accepts a single argument, just like slice. So if you pass in 2, it's going to start at index 2 and go from there. So that's another thing. We could use substring instead. Yeah? Okay, it still works. Cool. And then here's what I'm thinking. We've got some code duplication, right? We are doing the exact same thing twice. So what if we wrote I guess we could call it like capitalizer, and then we could reuse that function. So if we have like capitalize function that takes in the string and then does this, basically take the first argument, uppercase it, and then return the rest of the string. And so now we'll use input here like this. Look at that. Don't forget the semicolons like that. And now it'll be nice and abstracted out. Capitalize plus dash plus capitalize of ingredient 2. Like that, right? Does it still work? Nice. Look at this. I'm fixing this code. Yeah, so that's a good suggestion from M4X is we could use a template literal. Oh yeah, we could use at. Well, at only exists on arrays. Yeah, you're completely right. But that is another built-in method to grab a specific thing. So I know that it exists on arrays. Does it exist on strings? Because instead of bracket 0 or char code at or char at 0, if strings have at, we could use that. I don't think they do, though. Oh, they do. I thought it was only for arrays. I think I like at. It's nice and readable. So get the character at 0. Here's the nice thing about refactoring. I only have to change it once now. So because I put that code into this function and then I'm calling it here, I only have to change it once and the code should still work. Sweet. But yeah, we could do this with the template literal. Now, I'll backtrack a second. You don't have to do this. We're technically done with the first challenge. I'm just having some fun with a little bit of mixing and matching in code review. But yeah, we could turn this into a template string like this. So pull that in, do the dash, and then pull this in here. And then like so, we got ourselves. Now, you could argue on the readability of this. Whenever I'm concatenating strings, I prefer to use plus signs if it's like less than 3 or 4 variables, because arguably this is like weirder to look at than the plus signs. But yeah. Pranav says, I made it clear by using a variable as well. Oh yeah, like technically, instead of calling these in line, you could store them in variables and then return the variables concatenated for sure. And what's up, Sayalwa? Good to see you, says, love your content. Appreciate that. Yeah, that's the one cool thing about at, which cleans up a lot of array access code, is if you want the last element of an array, you can pass in -1. Yeah. Use the spread operator to get the last element. Oh! Or no, so use the spread operator, which will give you the first character and the rest. That is cool. I like this, Itakito. We're going to do that. And what's up, Rogadev? Who says, hilarious, I was watching an old YouTube live stream for a solid 10 minutes before I realized it wasn't the live stream I was looking for. Well, welcome in. Good to see you. Well, strings, I don't think they're arrays directly. They are technically a list of characters, but you can't use array methods on strings unless you convert it into an array. Yeah. Using the plus or template literal also may vary on the use case, yeah. But check this out. If we use destructuring, we could grab the first character and then the rest of the characters. Is rest a reserved word? I don't think it is. And destructuring works on strings like this because it's iterable. And then our code gets cleaned up here, because then we can say, take that first character, send it to uppercase, and then take the rest of the characters and send them to lowercase. Look at that. It didn't work. Rest. Oh, because it's an array. Yeah, that makes sense. Because it's going to put the rest of these into an array. We would then need to turn it back into a string like that. And then we could call to lowercase. Yeah. So it's not quite as clean. It's all right. It's all right. Cool. We can make this more functional too. Let's do this. So what if we had a list of ingredients? Like this, ingredient 1 and ingredient 2. And really what we want to check is if any of them are undefined. So built into arrays, there is a sum method and also an every method. So if some of these ingredients are undefined, then we want to throw an error. So this gives us the ingredient, and we could do it like this. So now we have the ingredients, and for each one, if any one of them is undefined, this is going to return true, and that should still work in the same way. Or not. Oh no, we want opposite. Strike that, reverse it. So we want every one of them to be defined, but if every one of them is not defined, then we throw an error. Or not. What am I doing wrong here? We've got our ingredients. I guess the other thing I could do is I could spread these into an array. Do equal undefined? Okay, so maybe, if maybe they're passing in empty strings. Or I could do this. if some of them are false. There we go. You know, I have a hard time with Booleans logics, but here we go. Here's the other thing we could do. We could spread the arguments into an array called ingredients, like this. Then we don't need this extra variable. Cool, so that works. And then if we want to log them both out, we can just for each over them. And then we get the index. And then we could do this. But we want to put the index on there, so we could do this. I plus 1, and then ingredient right here. Cool. That should log it out in the same way. And then we're destroying this code. But check it out. What if we returned each ingredient capitalized? So we could map it and pass it into the capitalize function. So now we have an array of capitalized ingredients. And then we join that whole array together on a dash like that. Look at us. All right, I think I'm done with day one. But there's lots of ways to write JavaScript. I like to talk about them all. Use not, yeah, so if we did every, we could do not. But if we do some, we could do a single not, yeah. What about passing a Boolean to every? That could work too. So the Boolean constructor, if you do Boolean like this, if it's a falsy value, this might not work. I couldn't say this off the top of my head. If you pass an empty string into the Boolean constructor, does it give you false? It does. And I believe that's not what we want. Or is it? I don't know. Maybe it is. I'm going to stick with what I have, and we're going to keep moving because we got 4 more days to do. A little bit of over-engineering? Exactly, Gorkum. That's what we're here to do. This is an extremely over-engineered solution. Or you could say this is senior developer code, you could say. Yeah. What if the array isn't an array? What do you mean by that, Roga? Maybe you were talking about something I showed earlier. Yeah. Am I a manager? Let's make it more complex. No, I think it's fun to talk about all the different ways, right? Because like also for those of you that aren't aware of like the sum or the every methods, so there's that. Also, I'll talk about this. I see in a lot of code reviews, developers will use map when they're not actually returning anything. So like technically we could put a map right here and this would work. But if you're not doing anything with the return data, you absolutely should use the for each method. Yeah. All right. Next challenge. All right. Day two. All right. This is a little bit more code. I potentially won't refactor this, but we'll see. So a fork in the road presents 2 paths. One leads home and the other leads to a cliff. The light post is switched on, but no light is being emitted. A sneaky bug in the code must be keeping the light from turning on properly. The Yeti needs help solving the puzzle to avoid tumbling down the mountain. All right. So we have a method called turn on lights. It accepts lights. And then we have a list of results. I guess the other thing is, do we have access to TypeScript in here? Will the code still work if I put TypeScript? No, okay. If I put type annotations, all right. So lights is an array. We're going to iterate over them. And then for each one, if the light is on, continue on to the next one. But if the light is off, and then there are other lights that depend on it, we're going to find its dependencies, make sure that all of the lights that it dependent on are on as well. And then if all of its lights are on, then you can turn it on, and then we do it again. So we're making sure that every light can be turned on, and it can only be turned on if its dependent lights are turned on. Okay, from there, the current light is going to be the last one that we looked at before using continue. Okay, I'm going to rewrite this. I don't like using continue inside of for continue statements make it really hard to read for loops because you have to think about, okay, well, this code isn't going to execute. It's going to go here. And then if this code didn't execute, or do you even need this? Maybe you don't even need this line of code. I don't know. Let's solve it first. Then we'll potentially code review it. And then We add to the results. So we say the specific light got turned on. Okay. Cool. Okay, so this code isn't working. I think that's the main issue. I think we do see an error here that says assignment to a constant variable. And we can look at all of our consts. So we have current light, and we're not reassigning it after that line. And then we have dependencies, and then can turn on. Ah, here's another one that I missed. So this is probably the fix. You cannot reassign to a constant variable. Though here's the thing, it is technically block scoped, and then on each iteration it's a new block. But that's actually the that should be the bug. Does that fix it? Yeah, there we go. That fixed it. But we're gonna I'm gonna I bet the person who wrote this code is probably hating me right now. We're gonna rewrite this. We're gonna see some other ways to write this. I'm gonna do my best to try and remove these continue statements. Like maybe we could do it. I guess we could even make this like a full-on reduce. We could turn this loop into like a single reduce maybe that turns all the lights on. I don't know. How's everybody feeling? And Gorkum says, I pronounced your name almost exactly. Nice. Why are we using an async function here? Because it doesn't hurt. I'm guessing the code that calls this is awaiting it. Let's see. Oh no, it still works without it. That's actually interesting that it still works without it, because with the async, technically it would be returning a promise with results on it. Yeah. Mark Huggins says, you missed the same const I did. Yeah, you saw me read through the code. I was like, okay, starting here, and then starting here is like, where else is the const? Inside that for loop there. Yeah, that'll do it. It does hurt. There's no way. Yeah. If the lights rely on one another, you could give you infinite recursion. Yeah, if there's a circular dependency. Well, I don't think it would be infinite, because we do have this outer loop here. And we're not really calling any functions here. We could run into some like slow code, because this is in squared complexity here, because we're doing a filter on all the lights, and then includes, well, not in squared. It's like in times m, because includes still has to search the nested array for each light. But yeah, sorry I keep missing your messages on Twitch, Roga. Everyone seems to be over on YouTube. Oh yeah, Roga found it. Yeah. Okay. Do I really want to rewrite this? And then Roga with the LOL over here on Twitch. They're in both spots. That's okay. You can watch wherever is comfortable. All right. If the light is already on, continue. Here's what I would do, at least for right now. If the light is not on, do this code. We're not going to use the continue statement. Okay. Broken. Okay. I guess technically, wait, I guess I'm missing some control flow here. So if the light is on, continue means skip the rest of this code. Shouldn't this work? And we can take, maybe I didn't put all of the code in there. Okay, so that still works. Cool. And then if the current light has dependencies, then we're going to check to see if all of its dependencies are on. But if they're not, then we're not going to turn it on. Okay. If the current light is not on and wait. I guess I could do this here. If the current light has dependencies and oh no, but then we're trying to find the dependencies there. Okay, we have some suggestions. Mark is saying, flip the last if and move the next two lines into the block. Okay. Does continue pass outside an if scope? It does. That's honestly why I don't like continue, because you could be in a deeply nested block inside the for loop, and if there's a continue statement there, it basically goes to the top of the for loop and starts executing from there, which is a little bit confusing. Can we find the dependencies earlier, then check if the light is on? Possibly, but let's see if we flip this, if can turn on, turn it on. Done. Unexpected return. Oh. This needs to be out. Wait. Where was this? All right. If we cannot turn on, skip all of the code below it. But if we can turn on, why is this so confusing? Also, what does it mean unexpected return? Okay, does this code still works? This code still works. Let's do it like this. Can turn on equals true. And then we'll reassign it here. And then if can turn on, then we'll turn it on. Isn't that the same thing? Yeah, I guess it's the same thing, except we had to handle the case where a light doesn't have any dependencies. That's the issue. Okay, now, arguably, is this code easier to read? There's more nesting, right? We have to go like this, but there's less jumping around. So I think I would prefer it. But now that we've got it working, we could potentially refactor it a little bit more. We could also turn this into a map. So a lot of times, if you see yourself writing a for loop and then pushing results into some array, you typically can turn it into a map. But I guess in this case, the results array is only going to be the length of lights that are not on. It's not the full length. So a map wouldn't make sense. You would probably turn it into a reduce. Yeah. Okay. Maybe we can break the dependencies immediately, prevent the unnecessary loop for best case. Yeah. That will not trigger if a light doesn't have a dependency. Yeah, that was my issue is if there's no dependency, we still potentially want to turn it on. Yeah. Let's turn this into a reduce, because a reduce is fun. It's fun. Okay. We are going to return lights.reduce. This gives you first the accumulator in this case, our accumulator is the array that was outside here. So our accumulator is results. We're going to get then each individual light, and the code below it calls it current light. So we're going to call it current light here. Okay. And then we can specify an initial value for our reducer. So our reducer starts off as an empty array. So when you're converting a for loop to a reduce, basically take the thing on the outside, put the variable name here as the accumulator, and then put the assignment here as the initial value. Then we can take all of the codes that was inside the for loop and put it inside the reduce. Like this. And basically on each iteration of the reduce, we always return results so that the next iteration can use it. So all the way at the bottom here, we return results. And basically, if we turned the light on, then we would have pushed it into that array. So we can get rid of that. We can get rid of this. And look at us. We've turned it into a reduce that's going to work on the first try. Yes, yes. Okay. Is there anything else we can do here? I guess, can we potentially like flip these if statements? I guess now we can use returns instead. Because we're inside of a reduce, we're not inside of a for loop, we can do early return, which would prevent us from like nested loops. So if current light is on, return the results. Okay, this is the way. This is the way. Now we have one less nested loop. Okay, it's still working. Ooh, look at it. This is going to get nice. This is going to get nice and small. Okay. Return early, return often, says Ryan. Isn't it better to just use a map? Well, the issue with the map is the map would be the exact same length as the input array of lights, but our result array is only the length of the number of lights that we turned on, which is why I'm using a reduce here. So because you can see in this case, if all the lights are on, our results array is going to be empty, and that's okay. We have a suggestion from No Name who says maybe we can combine the dependencies and can turn on in the same loop. Yeah. Yes. Yes. I mean, you could argue this is getting harder to read, but now we could do this. So if we can turn it on, then turn it on. Also, I'm getting rid of the comments. Basically, I'm making this code really hard to read and making it so that only 10x developers can use it or refactor it. Cannot read properties of undefined, reading includes. That's okay. We'll do a little bit of this. Yeah, all right. Now, I think it would not have made sense to for the creators of Debug December to write this code this way, because it would have been a lot harder for people to follow the code. And then we can just do this. If this, then this. Look at that. This code is horrible. Don't ever write code like this. I mean, you can't. Here's the thing. The thing about a reduce is if you have anybody on your team that is newer or like doesn't know them as well, they're going to spend 5 times longer trying to understand what this code even does. And then the other thing is, like, we now have Um, we now have like these nested loops here that are kind of just like in line. What you have to think about is cognitive load, right? So when someone comes across this piece of code, how long does it take them to understand what this code is actually doing? And I would argue that it would take the majority of people longer to figure out what this code is doing versus what the code was doing before I decided to refactor it. We can improve it further by making it less readable. Yeah. It's better to use 2 filters. Let's see. The nice thing about every is that actually gives you, it will be potentially quicker if one of them is not on. So with filter is always going to run across every single thing in the array. So whatever the length of the array is, filter is going to run this function for every single one. Every is kind of like an early return. So if the first one that it comes across returns false, it's not even going to check the rest of them. So that's a nice little optimization to use every. Same thing with sum. Yeah. Cool. But here's the thing. If we would have written the code this way, we wouldn't have had the bug of a const. I don't have any consts in my code right here. All right, let's move on to the next one. Day 3, here we come. All right. Upon approaching a snowy hill, the Yeti discovers a playful snowball contest about to begin. To light the lantern to start the game, sorting a pile of snowballs by size using some code is necessary. However, running the code results in the snowballs getting mixed up instead of neatly ordered. The sorting function isn't working as expected, and a quick fix is needed to keep the fun going. All right, so we have a function called sort snowballs. It takes in the sizes and then sorts them. Now, I know what the issue is. Do you know what the issue is? I know what the issue is. The sort method, if you don't pass in a comparison function, it's going to do the default comparison. And I guess I would be curious, if we do console logs, do we get to see, we haven't even done this yet, do we get to see what, yeah, we can see what's inside. Yeah. And the issue that we're running into here is you can see that it's actually using string comparison by default, or like string locale comparison. Because when you compare the string 1 and the string, or if you compare the string 1, 0 and the string 2, 1, 0 comes first because it starts with a 1, if these things were strings. But to fix this code, we need to sort these as numbers. And I'll show you a couple of different ways to do it. We can do it the verbose way, which is if A is less than B, then we return -1, because we are saying that A should come before B in the sort order. If B is greater than A, we return, or if A is greater than B, we return 1, because we're saying that A comes after B in the sort order. And if they're exactly the same, we return 0. So if I'm sorting them in the right direction, which I always get wrong, this will work. Yeah, this works. The other way to do it is so this sorts from least to greatest, but if you want to sort from greatest to least, you would just flip these two. So this is the long way to do it. But because we are dealing with numbers, both A and B are numbers, we can actually just subtract them. We can just say A minus B, because that's either going to return a negative number if B is greater than A, 0 if A and B are the same, or a positive number if A is greater than B. And the comparison function here doesn't care if it's -100 or -500. If it's just a negative number, then it says it'll come before it in the sort order. And if it's a positive number, it doesn't matter what kind of positive number, it comes after it in this. I keep hitting my microphone. Sorry. Hold on. Let me fix this. Comes after in the sort order. And so this should do it too. Yeah. And so if you've ever come across code like this and you're like, what is happening? That's what's happening. Negative, positive, or 0. Yeah. Yeah. I guess I missed some chats from earlier. Oh, I didn't see this. Return on 16 and get rid of the return on 19. Maybe that's when I moved the result array up earlier. Yeah. Ryan says, I see there's a Debug December URL. Is there not a URL for the 11 months of the year? This is a play on Advent calendars. So Advent of Code was a really popular one that does this. There's also Advent of TypeScript. There's Advent of Rust. The idea is in the month of December, you solve one challenge every single day, which is similar to Advent calendars, where you get a little gift or surprise every day. This is specifically a Christmas thing. If you celebrate Christmas, you might have seen these things around. There's like physical ones like this, where every day throughout the month of December, you get a small little gift, and then that counts down the days until December. That's basically what this is. This is a play on that. Yeah. Yeah, so It's Not DG says the default comparisons are lexicographic, not as numbers. So it's comparing them as strings. Yeah. A minus B is just better to me. I like it, but I would also argue that if a developer comes across this and doesn't know what this is doing, it could be confusing. I will say, if you look at the MDN page for array sort, it shows you the verbose way and what exactly is happening here. Like this. So if A is less than B by some ordering criterion, and in the case of numbers, we can just use less than, return -1. If A is greater than B by some ordering criterion, return 1, otherwise return 0. A pretty common thing you see happening when you're sorting arrays of strings is to use the locale compare, because it automatically returns -1, 1, or 0. So E? Okay, so we want to sort this array. The thing is, by default, that will sort it. But if you're dealing with strings that are potentially in different languages, you want to use locale compare, which is built into strings, because the string comparison may not always be the same, especially like with accents and stuff like that. So typically, this is what you want to do. Instead of, if you're sorting an array of strings and you have an app that is in multiple languages, instead of using the built-in sort, you could do a dot locale compare B. For our purposes, we don't have any accents. This is going to work in exactly the same way. But if you were dealing with other languages, this makes it a whole lot easier to do that. Yeah, locale compare. Yeah. What about coordinates, sorting X and Y? Yeah, then at that point, you're just going to have some custom logic. And I guess it depends on your sorting criterion, right? If you're sorting them by X's, these could actually be objects, and then you can compare like A.X minus B.X. And so that is going to sort them along the x-axis, but you could also sort them along the y-axis, or you could sort them based on a distance function, right? So let's say you had a place that you were trying to go to, and then you had a list of x, y's. You could calculate the difference, calculate the distance between your target for A and B, and then return the one that has the shorter distance. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do with that custom compare method for sure. All right, day 4, here we come. Every winter, Yetis compete in the annual Ice Crystal Collection Challenge, racing to gather crystals in different colors. Each crystal must be carefully placed in its matching spot in the collection box. The Yeti with the most valid crystals at the end wins the Frosty Trophy. All right. It says, count the ice crystals. We get all of the user IDs. And then for each user ID, we are creating a new array with map. And then there's a function not available to us that is get ice crystals for user. So it's calling this. We don't know exactly what this does just yet. It gets the ice crystals. And so now we're going to have an array, potentially of arrays. Whatever this returns, we're going to have an array of that. And then for each one of those, yeah, so it's going to be an array of arrays. I'm guessing, because they're using the length method here. And then for each one of those, we're getting the total number of crystals and then returning it. But again, we have another error here, assignment to constant variable. So this should be a let, and that fixes that error. So the input is 1, 2, 3. The expected is 7. The actual is 23. But here's what I'm going to log crystals by user to see what we're actually getting back from that get ice crystals for user method. Null, white, null, 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 red, null, null, red, blue, null, 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 yellow, null, null, blue. Okay, maybe we don't account for the nulls. Maybe we have to filter out the nulls. So let's just do that. Let's get a filter. We get each individual value and then only return the value if it's truthy, if it has a value. Well, that fixes it. I want to see the output though. But yeah, that fixed it. Basically, this function was returning null and we needed to ignore it. So in this case, we got null, white, null, 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 red. Really, the length is actually just 2 because it's white and red. And then this one is red, blue, and yellow. And we have to ignore all of the nulls. So this is one way to do it. We could add a filter right here. And that will only return the values that have a truthy value. So it's going to get rid of all the nulls. The other thing is we could filter it right here. We could say, once we've come across them, filter out all the nulls, and then grab the length of that. This should work in the same way. We're just deciding on a different spot to filter. Yeah, and Mark mentioned they added their filter on line 16. Yeah, this is another way to do it, is you filter it right here whenever you're grabbing that length. Could we use a Boolean here as well? Yeah, in this case, this would work for a Boolean if you do like this, because when you pass null into the Boolean constructor, it's going to return false. Yeah, so that would work too. By not putting anything, we're basically returning a truthy or a falsy value, and then by passing it into the Boolean constructor, we're explicitly returning true or false. Yeah, exactly. And Mark is mentioning because null is a falsy value. And Dr. Moomba, thank you for the follow over there on Twitch. I think there's a hint about that in the text. The most valid crystals. I am really bad at reading directions. So yeah, the Yeti with the most valid crystals at the end wins the Frosty Trophy. That would make sense. So we're getting the crystals, but the valid ones are the ones that are not null. Cool. All right, let's turn this into a reduce. So, for each user, we're going to grab this. We're going to grab the sum. We're going to grab each user ID. We're going to get those. We're going to filter out the value. We're going to add that onto the sum. And our sum starts off as 0. But we do want to grab the length. Like this. No! Okay. Crystals for user ID. Add that onto sum. Is that not what was happening? I thought I was just going to one-shot it. Oh, okay, yeah. I did it right. Thinkiverse has it. I was so close. Instead of a map, this needs to be a reduce. Yeah, that should do it. Sweet. All right. Day 5. Okay, so this is the last one for today. I will say that one got harder. If you didn't log out the crystals, you wouldn't have seen the nulls. That's a good challenge. That's definitely will get people to log the values and try to figure stuff out. Okay. Day 5. Here we come. The Yeti stumbles upon a frozen pond where a puzzle awaits. Calculate the sum of the heights of the icicles hanging from the trees to light the lantern. The sum of the heights of the icicles. The code is used to add them up. Oh, they are using a reduce. So even the code's getting harder here. The code is used to add them up, but nothing happens. The lantern stays dim. It seems there's a bug in the code, and without a fix, the right total won't be reached to light up the next part of the path. And we're seeing right now there's a type error. Cannot create property total on number 1. Yeah, I see the error. And we've talked about this. What you need to do inside of a reduce. What are they missing? First person in the chat gets a cookie. What's missing here? An imaginary cookie. I won't really send you a cookie. What have we learned so far today, class? Exactly what Mark is saying. Yeah, and at dev got it. Return, we're missing the return, right? Because inside of reduce, the accumulator, this argument right here, it won't be anything unless the previous invocation actually returns something. Yeah. Two things, return and, so there's more than one bug. Okay, so first of all, the first bug is always return the accumulator. Yeah, but then, yeah, you're completely right. I missed this too. The accumulator is always the first argument, and then our value is the second argument. That's the fix. Yeah, there we go. Cool. All right, let's go the opposite way. Let's unreduce this. let's say we have our result, and that is equal to an object like this. And then we want to create a for loop. Do we have snippets in here? No. That iterates over each one. And we want numbers. Okay. And then the number is numbers at I. All right. And then we say result dot total, add the number onto it, and then return the result. Like that. Okay. See, I told you, if you wouldn't have used a reduce, you probably would have wrote the code right the first time, because then you didn't have to worry about the return statement, and you didn't have to worry about getting your arguments mixed up. Now we're 5x programmers. Yeah, we're cutting our code in half by writing it the long way. Cool. No, this was super fun. So yeah, the next challenge unlocks in 4.5 hours. And if you haven't done these yet, definitely check it out. So go to debugdecember.com. Every day, look at this. It lights the path as we go up. Every day, a new challenge is unlocked. And on certain days, they're doing giveaways. So if you look in the about, they're doing giveaways on the 6th, the 12th, the 18th, and the 24th. So if my understanding is correct, they're going to do the giveaway at the end of tomorrow. So you have until the end of tomorrow's challenge to complete these challenges. That'll enter you to win the giveaway, and the winner will get a code to get anything they want for free in the Syntax Swag Shop. Yeah, so Ryan is asking, what will I win? Anything in the Swag Shop. The Webmaster Tees got reprinted, so jobs kind of no. You can just win from the Swag Shop. But the Webmaster Tee did get reprinted, so that's there. We also have the Blazing Fast tees. There's the fingerboards, and if I read this right, there's a frequently asked questions here. If I read this right, I think it's good for anything in the store. So if you want to maximize your value, you could get a Syntax skateboard if you wanted to. ChatGPT Pro just dropped $200. What? Who would pay that? I wouldn't pay that. Maybe some people would pay that. I do believe there's a spot on here that tells us about it. But yeah, and then here on the stats, you can see the number of people that have completed each day. So only 300 people have completed day 5. So get on it. Yeah, so you're going to be provided a unique code, and each code is valid for a single item and cannot be reused to claim additional prizes. Yeah, so you could maximize your value and get yourself a $50 Syntax skateboard. Like this. But yours will be brand new. It won't have all these scratches on it like mine. The tumbler. Oh yeah, we have a it's actually a can cooler. So the top unscrews and then keeps your cans cool. My wife and I both have one, and we just leave it by the couch. So anytime we're drinking our sodas by the couch, they always stay cool. Yeah. Go for a hat. Yeah, I have this one. I will say that the hats are big. If you haven't seen them in person, you could probably tell by looking at the models. Like this model has a slightly smaller head. It is it's kind of big. I think like even this one, I could rock that. Yeah, it's still a little big for me. I don't wear a lot of hats though. Yeah. Yeah, I think we'll do. So how long have we been live? Yeah, we've been live for roughly an hour. I think I'll do some TypeScript challenges now too. I think that sounds good. I'll probably take a quick break and then we'll do some more. Did I miss any other chats? Yeah. Advent of TS. Yeah, so we'll do that. Okay. So again, debugdecember.com, debugdecember.com, debugdecember.com. Go check it out. You have until you have 24 plus 5 hours to complete some challenges to be entered for the raffle that's going to happen after tomorrow. And then here's all the frequently asked questions if you have more questions about Debug December. But all right, I'm going to take a quick 2-minute break, and then when I come back, we're going to do Advent of TypeScript. So this was created by Trash Dev, and similarly, it's a challenge every day, but these are TypeScript challenges. And I'm also going into these blind, so I haven't even used this website yet. But yeah, so you can see each day leading up to Christmas Day, there's a type challenge. And here we go. So yeah, here's the description, here's the codes, and we're going to have to write some TypeScript to fix it. So I'll be back in 2 minutes. We'll do this. And if you've been sitting down all day, just stand up for a second, maybe drink some water. I'll see you very, very soon. All right, everyone, welcome back. Now we are going to do Advent of TypeScript. So just like Debug December and Advent of Code, these are challenges that are released every day. These specifically have to do with TypeScript. So we're going to practice using TypeScript utilities and working probably on generics. I don't know how difficult it's going to be at the beginning. I imagine at some point we're going to be working with generics and stuff like that. And there are 5 challenges so far, so I'm going to try to do the first 5. I'm going into it blind. I have not seen any of these yet, so we'll see how good my my TypeScript is. What is vector embedding? It's a way of encoding text so that it creates relationships between the text. I don't know how accurate I am on that simple explanation, but the idea is if you, let's say you have a bunch of text. So take, for example, over on Coding Garden, Pranav says I'm correct. So take over on Coding Garden, we're working on a project where I take all the transcripts of every live stream I've ever done, and I want to turn it into something that's searchable, and then maybe also something where an AI can answer questions in relation to what I talked about on stream. But basically what we could do is create vector embeddings for every single one of the transcripts. And then whenever someone types a question, we can query a database that supports vectors, and it can return the related documents really quickly, because it will basically encode the question and then also be able to look at the encodings of all of the transcripts and very easily correlate which of those transcripts correspond or are similar to the question that's being asked. And then those documents could then be embedded in the prompt for like an AI. Yeah, exactly, Ryan. So that's what it is. It would be cool if AI could do that in real time while you stream. Well, the idea with vector embeddings is you set them up ahead of time. And I'm building that over on the Coding Garden channel. It's the most recent live streams that I did over there. If you click on live, so it's this building with Dino V2. These 2 streams have nothing to do with vector embeddings. These were just me writing the code to talk to the YouTube API, get every single video and live stream I've ever done, and then get the transcripts for every single one. So we've written that code. We have all the transcripts. The next step is to figure out how to make it searchable. And I haven't decided yet, but the thing about vector embeddings is they're unique to each of the different AI models. And you typically have to call an API for it. So if we're going to be using OpenAI, they have an API endpoint which will create embeddings that their models can use. And then for all the other AI models, they have similar API endpoints. And so it kind of feels like vendor lock-in. Like the moment I choose an AI, we're creating all of these embeddings and paying to create all of those embeddings. So I haven't decided yet. The other thing is we probably could do like plain text search or feed it into a search engine like Apache Lucene. There are a few other search products out there, but Lucene is one of them. Lucene allows you to like index documents, and then it provides an API to allow you to search across those documents. So I might do something like this first, so that way I'm not locked into a particular AI. I was also looking into using Ollama, because that's like self-hostable, or like it can run locally. Yeah. Right now, we're not using any LLMs at all. Yeah. It makes sense. If AI was listening, summarizing, and answering questions, like during the live stream, that is a whole other thing. Yeah, so if we could have a transcript of what's happened in the live stream so far, and then someone asks a question in the chat, and then the AI answers because it was listening the whole time. Yeah, that would be pretty cool. I mean, we could probably create like a product out of that. People could have that bot just kind of like sitting in their chat. Yeah. YouTube's done that? I know they've done it for videos. I think if you have YouTube Premium, you can actually, I have it on my mobile app. If you go on a video, there's a section where you can actually talk to the chat, and I think it uses the transcripts. Yeah. Oh, Advent of CSS? Ooh, we should look at that too. I have not heard of that. I'm getting sidetracked, by the way. We're going to work on the TypeScript one. Look at this. Oh, you receive an email. Okay. What if I sign up late? Will you send me an email with all the links? Oh, nice. Yeah. Amy from, what was the podcast that they do? Compressed, yeah. Cool. It's after, wait, not that. Okay, we'll see how hard these TypeScript challenges are, but if I get through them pretty quickly, this would be fun to do as well. All right. 10%. All right, Ryan, you get 10% for having the idea. What's up, Chad? Welcome in. All right, let's do Advent of TypeScript. So adventofts.com, you get a new TypeScript challenge every day. It was created by Trash Dev. Let's go. Day 1. The reindeer have had enough. Santa's reindeer, Comet and Dasher, have a secret meeting with Bernard, the head of the elves. That's from the Santa Claus, one of my favorite movies with Tim Allen. There's an elf named Bernard. Okay. Comet, it's the economy, stupid. Dasher, Comet, I'm... Read a book or something. Your productivity is far outpaced North Pole's inflation like 2 decades ago. Our wage hasn't changed since 2009, and if you take inflation into account, we make half of what we made then. We could have the best economy of the last 500 years, and it still wouldn't change anything. Bernard says, boys, calm down. We'll fix this. We can fix this. Comet says, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Bernard, the Keynesian scholar. Maybe you can explain why we're still getting paid in candy canes like it's 1947. Apparently, we're dealing with reindeer here that don't even know the difference between any and unknown. Boys, calm down. You're not the only ones with problems. I've got 600 elves in the workshop huffing reindeer wax and unionizing over bathroom breaks. You just need to come up with a number for our demand. What kind of number? At this point, any number will do, but we need to start somewhere. Why not go all in? Write down infinity carrots and tell him it's non-negotiable. What's he going to do? Hire reindeer scabs? You know how hard it is to get Santa to focus these days? Half the time he's passed out in his workshop muttering about crypto and Mrs. Claus book club drama. Any number will be fine as a starting point. Okay. Here's the thing about a lot of these Advent challenges. There's a lot of story involved, and then figuring out what you actually need to do, ultimately, a lot of times is a bit easier. But we'll see. I think this is going to give us an intro to the whole thing. So yeah, what you just read above is part of the story for this year's challenge. This year's picks up from last year's stories. If it interests you, you can quickly read all of last year's stories here. In these stories, we get to know Santa in a much more personal way than you might be used to from picture books and cartoons. The story will often give you a lot of context about the changes you need to make to the TypeScript code. In today's example, we see that we're supposed to modify demand, the TypeScript type, to be a number. Truth be told, though, you don't really need to read the stories. If you like, you can jump right into reading the test to see what the behavior of your type is supposed to do. We'll usually start off with something, but it'll always be incomplete in some way. Take a look at the test and make a change to make the test pass. The hints. If you need a hint, sometimes you'll see something like this. Okay, so the test code is down below. We have expect and equal. We have our actual type, which is called demand. And then we have our expected type, which is number. So yeah, this is a pretty simple one to get us started off. And then we're expecting that the actual type equals the expected type. And so right now it has the type of unknown. But if we were to change this to number, now that fixes the code. So that's literally all it was asking for. Okay, I need to log in really quick. And then we can submit. All right, we're back. Submit. Good job. Nice. Day 1 complete. That was pretty easy. I imagine they're going to get harder. But yeah. Advent of TypeScript seems easier than 2023. I went back and tried 2023 and stopped after 5 challenges. I have never completed an Advent of Code. So Advent of Code is probably the one that inspired a lot of these. Advent of Code gets really hard. And last year, I think it might have been the first or second challenge. It was so hard that I posted my solution on YouTube, and it was like one of my most viewed videos of the year, just because so many people were trying to see how to solve that particular problem. And again, we're talking about Advent of Code. Yeah, look at this one. I had 18,000 views on the day 1 solution. But yeah, I've never completed a full year of Advent of Code. I think making them easier is good because you get a wider audience that can actually try these out. And it's a hard balance to strike, right? Because you don't want people to get so frustrated that they just quit, but you want it to be hard enough to be a challenge. It's definitely a hard balance to strike. Yeah. Will Ferrell turned down $29 million to do an Elf sequel. Elf is also one of my favorite Christmas movies. My wife and I really like Christmas. We watch a lot of Christmas movies. Elf is at the top of the list. The Santa Claus is at the top of the list. Yeah. All right. Day 2. Here we go. I'm gonna skip the story. I can only read so much. Yesterday, Comet and Dasher just gave number as their demand to Santa. That's not nearly specific enough. We're gonna need something much more specific. Look at the tests so we to see what we can change to make them all pass. Ched said there's a good documentary on the making of Elf. I'll have to check it out. Santa. I haven't looked up how to do this, but I heard that if you do Advent of Code with Dino, you get stickers. I'm definitely going to do it with Dino. Okay. The expected type is literally 90,000. Is this one just as easy? Or 900,000? Yeah. This is a newer feature of JavaScript you may not have seen. You can put underscores anywhere in a number, and it will just it'll just ignore them. Typically, it's for making numbers easier to read, but you can also make numbers harder to read. And this still works. But yeah, that was added. I forget when that was added. Was it ES 2015? But usually you use it to denote like every 3 numbers. So you can denote like thousands and millions and stuff like that. Yeah, it's syntactic sugar. Exactly. Or syntax sugar, because we are here on syntax. Yeah. Okay, next one. Day 3. All right, now we got lots of codes. The function Bernard created works for numbers, but it also accepts other data types like strings, booleans, arrays, and objects. That's not quite what we want. TypeScript can help us here. All right, so survival ratio is supposed to just take in a number. This one is also very easy, because we can type this to say that this function only accepts numbers like this, and then anytime you pass in anything else, it will give an error. Cool. All right. Let's keep moving. Day 4. When Santa uses this function, sometimes he'll want to pass a number like 2009, and if he wants a specific quarter, he'll pass 2009 Q2. Our function needs to be able to handle both of these data types, not just numbers. Yeah. Ken Papu says, all of these have been easier than 2023's day 1. We'll have to, I guess I'm already on day 4. We might have to try day 1 from 2023. Yeah. Okay. A syntax sugar jar? Okay. You're full of good ideas today, Ryan. I'll relay it to the team. Because it's literally syntax sugar. Like, what if we sold like a ceramic jar with the syntax logo on it? Yeah. Can you please over-engineer and test type of arguments? I'm not as good at TypeScript to be able to do things like that. The thing is, in this case, we just need to use a type union. So this gets a little bit more advanced. So you can write a function that takes in one type, like this. And now it has to be a number. But if they pass in a string, we're going to get a type error. And so what we can say is you can pass in a number or a string. And the pipe here is known as a type union. So input can be a string or can be a number. Now, this is just type annotations to say that we accept these two things. And so now the code doesn't break down here. The code that we write needs to take that into account. And in this case, it does. You can see that it's checking, well, if it's a string, then use it as is. But if it's not a string, then, but if it's not a string, we want to just assume that it's Q1 for whatever year was passed in. So the type union here allows us to have arguments that are of multiple types. Yeah. I had to put you at 0.75 speed when following the Hono tutorial, like being taught to code by someone after a bottle of vodka. I've done this before. Like I've listened to my own videos at like super slow speed. I think when you do this to most people, it sounds like they're drunk when they're talking really slow. Yeah, drunk CJ teaching you about TypeScript. Okay, Ken says they didn't get tougher until day 4. Okay, I think we're already on day 5. Or, right? Yeah, we're already on day 5, so we'll probably try the first few of 2023 as well. Santa is hard to please. That much is for sure. To appease him, we want a function that will accept any input and return a value that has exactly the same type. Are we immediately jumping to generics on day 5? Okay. Author is a string. Route is unknown. And it can be anything. We could just use the any type, right? No. Okay. Because then the return type would be the any type and not the exact type. Okay, we have to use generics. Okay, so here we go. Our one little lesson on generics here. So in all of the examples here, we're passing in a number and we're expecting that the type is going to be a number. We're passing in true. We're going to expect that the type is a Boolean. We're passing in an array of numbers. We're going to expect that the type is an array of numbers. And so what we need to do is declare a type parameter. And typically that is you'll see it as just the letter T. And typically that refers to just some generic type. It could be anything. This type can be literally anything that's passed into this function. And then, so that goes there. But the other place that you put it is right here to say that whatever gets passed in here, we're going to infer that type and then use it as T. And then everywhere else in our function, that thing will be T. And so that should be the solution here. I will say this was a pretty big jump from day 4 to day 5. I mean, this is probably one of the simplest use cases of generics because it gets a lot more complex. Because right now we're saying the type can be anything, but a lot of times you want to have a generic type, but you also want to restrict it in some way. So you could say, well, T extends an object that has a name that is a string. So T can be anything as long as it has a name property that is a string. Or a lot of times you see, well, T extends object. And now T can be any sort of object thing. But in this case, we don't want any sort of restriction on the type. We're just saying we're accepting in a type, and whatever the type of that thing that is passed in, that is what it will be. There we go. We did it. Day 5. Sweet. All right. I'm going to sign up for Advent of CSS just so I can get the email. And then we'll try to do some of those. And then while I'm waiting on the email, we'll do the first few of Advent of TypeScript 2023. What is the most complicated type you ever encountered that you remember? I don't know. I've seen some crazy stuff. These days, nothing really surprises me anymore because I do a lot of source code diving. Like, even just looking at the types inside of Hono are pretty interesting, specifically because Hono has their typed RPC. So if you look at Hono, they have the Hono client. So basically, you can define a backend API. You can define validators with Zod that describe the type of data that your functions are going to return or going to receive. And then you can just grab the type of that and then use it in your Hono client. So you pass that type in, and now this is fully typed. It knows about all of the methods that you created on your specific app. And so I dug into a lot of these types to see how are they doing this? Like literally just based on this one type, now inside of your editor, you get code completion for all of this. And like you'll get type errors if you pass in the wrong stuff here. And those types actually flow through from right here. It's nothing crazy, but it is pretty interesting stuff to read. What else have I looked at? I feel like I was looking at some types recently. What was I doing? I think it was just more Hono stuff, because like I also did the Open API Hono API, and I was looking at how they did all of their types. Yeah, this is the exact part that Drunk CJ was telling me about. Mark says that she also does a companion advent of JavaScript. They're the same, just in one you do the CSS. She gives you the JavaScript, in the other you get the CSS, but you don't write the JavaScript. I see. Yeah, we'll just do the CSS one, because we're going to do all our JavaScript writing in the Debug December. And then I mentioned it earlier, but this weekend I'm going to do some live streams over on the Coding Garden channel, where I work on the first 6 or 7 days of Advent of code. All right, let me go check my email. All right, signing up. Got to generate a password. Just a second. Oh, this is a lot more involved than I thought it would be. But we'll do it. We'll do at least one of them, so we can flex all of our skills today. We did JavaScript, we did TypeScript. Now we'll do some CSS. Yeah, when Hono first came out, you were one of the first people to cover it. Your videos made me like it. I built an API with it for my company, and now it's in production. Yeah, that's awesome to hear. Is there a way to export or install the Hono client into a front-end app, not a mono repo? Also, I find Hono client much better than the Open API client generators. I don't know why. The Open API client generators, depending, they're all based on your type definitions and the schema definition of your API. And if it's not the best, then the generated code isn't going to be the best. And they all have their own ways of doing it that you may not be used to. But yeah, I mean, the easiest way, well, not easiest, but one way is to literally just build your code and then copy the type. So you can run the build command for your backend and make sure that you have type declarations turned on. And so as long as you are exporting that type, so if we look at how they tell us to do RPC, where you need to export the app type, build the code, you will have a file called API.ts, and it's just going to have this type inside of it. You could literally copy paste that file into your front end app. That's not the ideal way to do it, but that is one way to do it. Basically, build the code, grab that TypeScript file, and then just use it in your backend code. When you're inside of a mono repo, that gets much easier because you can actually just import the type from your backend package. They do have a section here on like compiling the type. Yeah. Compile your client, including the server app, gives you the best performance. Put the following code in your project. Yeah, so they even say this. You could actually have this piece of code in your backend code and just call it client.ts. Do the build. That's going to generate the code with all the embedded types, and then you can just import that directly inside of your front end code. But that's the roundabout way to do it. How would you build a Hono app and then say run Vue or Vite on the front end? Can you do that with a full Vue router setup for the front end? Yeah, you can. I've seen some videos on it. Basically, it's just the old way of doing things where you have a decoupled back end and front end. And there's multiple ways to deploy it, right? You could deploy your front end completely statically, and then your back end could be deployed as like serverless functions or something like that. But your front end Vue code can still talk to your Hono backend, but you also could combine them and deploy them in the same code base. Because if you look at Hono, they have a file, serving static files. So technically, you could build and bundle your front end, serve that from like the root, and then the rest of your Hono app would, like your API endpoints might be accessible from /API. There's a way to do it. If you look up tutorials on people that have done it with Express, the way to do it with Hono is going to be very similar. What's up, Paolo? Good to see you. Yeah. And America 2050, I missed your messages. Hello. Yeah, welcome in, Ken. Yeah, we're over here on the syntax channel today. Do you need to specify the return type as T2? It's inferred. Yeah, we're talking about the advent of TS right now. Day 5. It's a good question. Because we are returning route, which is of type T, the return type inferred is T. Technically, you could be explicit. You could say this function returns type T. It's exactly the same. But in this case, without it, we're using inferred types like that. Yeah. Oh, nice to hear. Ken mentioned they're using Hono inside of Next.js. That's a pretty, I hear it's a common pattern. In the most recent episode of Syntax, Scott and Wes talked about how you typically don't need to do that because you can just use the built-in way of building APIs. I will say with Next.js, their way of building APIs does leave a bit to be desired, so you can get some nice type completion and type inference if you're using the Hono client. But if you look in the Hono docs, check out Vercel. They talk about right here how you can write a Hono app and then just put it inside of a Next.js application as like a catch-all router. And so now you have a Hono app living inside of a Next.js app. It's possible. It's definitely possible. And thanks for the follow, Fairy Hunter. Appreciate you. Yeah. Could you do a Hono app inside of a Next project? You could, but you probably would want to use Nitro instead. So Nitro is what Nuxt is built on top of, and it has its own ways of like building API functions. So you would probably want to do this instead of pulling in Hono. Paolo says you did the first 5 days of Debug December. Nice. From your phone. That's great. Yeah. You don't like Nitro. That's why you want to bring in something else. I haven't spent a lot of time with Nitro. Okay, let's look at this advent of CSS. So I signed up, and it looks like we're going to be building this from scratch, which seems pretty involved. but let's check it out. So create a photo gallery card similar to what Facebook uses in their feed. The trick here is not just display the grid, but make the code smart enough to display the photos correctly, regardless of whether there's one photo or 21. There's a Figma file. Okay, so basically we want to write some CSS that when there's a single image, it displays it like this. Otherwise displays the grids, and then if there's more than 5, it adds the plus on there. Doing this with pure CSS, I can't immediately think of how I would do this. Like in my mind, I would need JavaScript for this, but it seems like it would be possible with just CSS. Yeah. All right, let's try it. Let's download the project files. Oh, I think you're right, America 2050. We have to use, yeah. So again, I'm not the best at CSS. So you can provide hints, but what America 2050 just said, like nth child. So we could see like if it has a certain number of children, then specify the grid should be a certain way. Okay. And if you're just joining us, we are doing Advent of CSS. I think it's adventofcss.com, where you essentially get a new challenge every day in December for CSS. And what I'm learning now is they don't have a built-in editor in the browser. They actually give you files that you need to download that are your assets, and then you can just do all of your coding locally. So that's what we'll do. Let me get set up real quick. Okay. And I think I'm just going to use plain old JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. I'm not going to use any framework or anything like that. And I made a folder called 2024, and then a folder called 01. And then these are the photos that they provided. And we'll use those. I'm going to move it into lowercase photos. Cool. And I'll open this up with VS Code. Okay. I need an index.html, like so. We'll call this AOCSS number 1. And then we've got all of these photos. So let's do some command line. Ooh. I think if I do this, ls-1 photos. Good enough. So basically, I want to add all of these images into my HTML, and then we'll start to style it. So I'll probably have like a section, and then we're going to have each of these. And then I'm going to put each of these inside of an image tag, and then we'll start working on our CSS. So select all of this. Make sure that the path is right. So photos/that. We want an image tag. The source is going to be here, like so. Okay. And then I'll just use a thing called Light Server. I don't know if I have it. Yeah. So Light Server, it's auto refreshing dev server, but there's no build process. Basically, if it sees changes to any file in this folder, it's just going to refresh the browser for us. But there we go. We have a page with some giant images. I mean, we could go ahead and let's go ahead and add some styles. So I'm going to add a link, and we'll create our styles.css. And for now, let's just make all of the images have a width of 100%, so we can see them on the page. Yeah, so there they are. Wonderful. Now, do we get any other hints? I think it just says, here's a Figma file, here's the photos, make it happen. And America 2050 says, there's a weird icon in my VS Code. Why does it have a post CSS icon? Yeah, so that is post CSS. I think I have post CSS set as my my default thing because I use Tailwind a lot of times. Yeah, it's post CSS. Okay. I think this is a job for display grid autofill. Never used it before. Yeah. Yeah, so no JavaScript. We're going to do this all with CSS. How would you implement the +21? Maybe with the has. The has. CSS is about to be Turing complete. Jefferson says, I have an issue with your Hono template inside of Next.js. Somehow it doesn't find or like the route separation that includes the OpenAPI spec on that route. Not quite sure what you mean. If you open up an issue on the GitHub repo, I could try to help you out. If you provide like a code example, yeah, open up an issue here, and I'll try to help you out. There's one that I need to respond to on there right now as well. Nth child, yeah. I don't know. Let's try it out. Okay, so they gave us the base images. We have these Figma files. let's just get these displayed in a grid and also with like a little bit of border radius, because it looks like these images have border radius on them too. I'm gonna work backwards. I'm gonna go final form, and then we're gonna hide stuff depending on how many are there. So final form, we're gonna have a grid that has 2 rows, 2 columns on the first row, 3 columns on the second row. So what did they call this? They called it a gallery card. So let's do this. We're gonna have a gallery card. We're going to set the display to grid. The grid template rows is just 2 rows. And grid template columns. Wait, can we have? I guess we could do like grid areas. Maybe we want. How's this going to work with grid? I actually don't know. Because how would you have 2 columns in one? I guess you could have 2 separate grids. What is grid? What can we do with grid template areas? Yeah, this has got to be it, right? The only issue is then how do I assign each of the images? It'll be like the nth child is how I'll assign it. And Austin the Dev, thank you for the follow over there on Twitch. Yeah. Yeah, and Ken is mentioning it's not just, you can't just drop in the Ono stuff into Next.js. There's a little bit of stuff you have to set up. Okay. We want there to be a thing in the middle. Is this code editable? Because I guess if we did like 2 rows. That I guess maybe we would need 6. Because then we could have D, and then E, and then E. Like that? Maybe? Or do you not have to have the same amount? Can you have a different amount? They have to be equal, right? And Egg Soletus, thank you for the follow on Twitch. BBCC. What's up, BMind? Yeah, I'm bad at CSS. This is going to be the hardest thing we've done all day. Is I need to recreate this. I could do it with like a flexbox and a flexbox, or a grid with 2 columns on top of a grid with 3 columns. But doing it with a single grid baffles me. Like this. We'll try it with grid template areas. Because my thought is if we have 6, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that. Right? Because then you have 2 and 3. We could have different grid template areas depending on the number of children, and that could be like a has query. But first off, let's give this section the class of gallery card. Like so. And what does that do for us? We're going to have to do some debugging. I guess we will say that images have a width of 100%. Okay. And then we'll say that there are... It's not quite what I was thinking because I guess I don't know how grid template areas works. Like, does this not define that there are 2 rows with 6 columns? Oh, this needs to be a single string like this, right? No, they're multiple strings. A row is created for every separate string listed. Okay, then why do we only have one? Oh, because there's 6 elements. I see. I'm telling it... because I'm telling it that there's going to be 6 images across the top, but that is not what I want. Okay. Paolo is saying I need to assign a grid area to every image. So if we're going to use grid template areas, then we could do something like if it has a 7th child, if a gallery card has, how do we do like 7th child or like nth child of? Or oh, okay. So this is what Paolo is saying. Is there an advent of HTML? We could make one. So the first child has A. The second child has B. Look at repeat autofill or autofit. Okay, but can someone explain to me in 200 characters or less, how do we recreate, just let's not even think about the scenario where we have to change it depending on the number of children. How would you create this with CSS Grid? I guess you could use column spans. Like, how would you create this with CSS Grid without assigning each element to a specific cell? Autofit will create columns automatically. Grid, 6 columns. The first 2 span 3. The second row span 2 each. Okay, so that's kind of what I was trying to do with grid template areas. But how do I set up the column spans? Those are going to have to be on the children, aren't they? Yeah, good call. I do have 6. Do I have 6 images? Yes, so let's just do it with 5. You just specify the length of the column. All right, let's first start with column columns. We want 6 columns. Okay. And 2 rows. Okay, now we need to tell it that the first 2 children span 2 columns. Just make 3 columns and 2 rows. Can something span a column and a half? Do you see my dilemma? Do you see my... You can have something span 1.5 columns? That's what Pranav just said. Okay, I'm learning a lot about CSS today. Column span. That's a table cell. Is this the property that I want? This isn't specific to grid. Grid column start. Okay. How do I make something span 2 columns? Because I don't even know enough to do that. And I don't know what the property is called. Like in Flexbox, you would have like place self or something like that. Template? Because it looked like that column span property. Okay, so let's just say the first child. Will this do it? No. Grid column span is what I need, says Taco. Thank you, Taco. Because see, like column span is something completely different. Grid column start. No. Grid column span? that's not a valid property. How many developers does it take to span an element across 2 columns? Let's see what this Stack Overflow has to say. Yeah, this is what we want. Grid column is what we want. Gotcha. Okay. So the first one and the second one are going to span 2 columns. Did I specify this right? No, I did. Okay. That is not getting applied here. Do I need to say image? So the first... How does nth child work? I also don't know how that works. It would just be... It would be like that. So image. So the first child? It doesn't seem like it's getting applied. Do I have to use oh, that wouldn't work because we're using nested CSS. There we go. Okay. Yeah, and actually we want these to take up 3. Like that. All right, we're on our way, everyone. Here we go. I think the other thing we'll do, let's just give this gallery card a fixed height of, I don't know, 800 pixels. Overflow hidden. And then the images, can we set the height of the rows? Do we want something like fit cover? Not quite. All right, we're gonna lose the aspect ratio for a second. Yeah, this is fine. We'll fix the aspect ratio in a second. Yeah, we'll fix the aspect ratio in a second. All right, I'm gonna give it a gap. Let's call it 2 rem. That's too much. 1 rem. That's better. Each image is gonna have some border radius. 25 pixels. 15 pixels. Okay. And then now the 3rd, 4th, and 5th are only going to span 2 columns. Like that. Okay. We're closer. Oh yeah, you're right. Oscar, what's up, Oscar? I see you in the Twitch chat who says 15 pixels. Why don't you just use 1 rem, which I guess would be 16 pixels. Yeah. Okay. Now, how do I make the image? Well, I think now if I do object fit cover, width 100%, height 100%, width and height 100%, cover. Fascinating. We're done. That's it, right? Contain? Let's see what contain does. No, apparently not. Okay. Let's put the little text on the last one here, this plus 21. And then we'll work from there. Then we'll make it work without the plus 21, then we'll make it work with just 4 images. Okay. The 5th child now has the after pseudo selector is going to have content that just says plus 21. Before? White, color, font size, 42 pixels. What's up, Bobo? He says, I love this so much. I found my people. Basically, it's everybody just yelling at me, trying to get me to do it right. Position absolute on the pseudo selector. Okay, thank you, Omo and Stella. So that'll put it on top of the element. One would hope. Do I want after? Oh, then the parent needs to be, so position absolute on the image and then position relative on the image. Okay. Oh, I think it's okay to put position relative on all of them. Do I want to do before or after? What's the difference here? Z index, says Stella? 99. Huh. Can image tags have content? Do I need to make this like, yeah, images might not have pseudo selectors. Do I need to make this, what do you call it? Display like inline block? No. Make the color, I'm gonna make the color of the text red. Yes, it was Stella's suggestion to change the color so we can see it. Like, where is it even showing up? I don't see it anywhere. Paolo is saying an image is a substituted element, so it has no before and after. Okay, let's look up CSS image pseudo before. It won't work. Add display block content to the image. Hello. Oh. And then add style background image. Yeah, this just says there's no way to do it. And then the pseudo class needs height and width. Can it be 100%? Here's the thing. If I place a div in the same one, what I want to avoid is creating a div wrapper for every single image. We could do that though, right? In our HTML, we could put each one of these inside of a div, and then it could have content on top of it. Yeah. What's up, Harsh? Good to see you. So I have I have content. Oh, I thought I had. I guess I got rid of it. Pseudo elements. Content in the after pseudo element? Let's try it. Oh, swap these. So make this one the after and this one the before. This is what Stella is mentioning. Nope. I might have to just do some divs, some div containers. Christian is mentioning use an ordered list and then use the counter value of the last child for dynamic data. That's clever. I was just going to hard code plus 21. I meant both before and after. Oh, well, then I can't have content here. How would I put the plus 21 if I have to? It has to be on both. Put the content here. Yeah. What's up, Matthew? Good to see you. Stella says, put the content 21 in the before. Nothing is happening. Yeah, and then okay, I'm tempted to go down the path of using an ordered list or like a numbered list. Maybe I should just stick to TypeScript. Listen, the only way to get better is with practice. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to put this into a list. Well, the issue with it being in an ordered list is now well, I guess if it's an ordered list, then I could put it in, I could make that the grid. The thing is, at that point, I already have a wrapper element. Look at that. Does this get rid of the display grid, though? Oh, because I told it, specifically my CSS is looking for images, but I think I can just remove all of these selectors and just the nth child. I'm going to get rid of all this for now. Okay. It's a little better. We can see the marker is getting put in there. Also, the thing is getting chopped off, but we now have a marker that we can mess with. So I think by default, we will not display the markers. So like set the list style. None. Okay. There's a lot of weird, I think, yeah, there's some default. Let's do a basic reset. No margin, no padding, box sizing of border box. Okay, maybe a little bit of padding on the body. Or okay, why is this getting cut off now? Oh, because the LI, I think the LIs, these are 100% width of their parent, but the LI needs to be that as well. Taco is saying this is even harder than data structures and algorithms. Yeah. The ordered list is really messing with my styles. I guess I didn't think about now that the image itself isn't the cell. It's taking up too much space. Because now I couldn't even explain to you why these are taller than the others. I guess because I have height 100%. But now they're cut off even more. Okay, here's my thought. List items have overflow hidden. And then position relative. Do I need that on there on the list item? Yeah. This, did I do it? I guess I did it. I barely know what, basically I hid the overflow from each individual list item, and now it looks fine. Okay. Great. What we want to do is we want to take the last item. So what was mentioned by Christian earlier was we need some kind of counter. So use this structure, then use the counter value of the last child as the count value for the dynamic data. So I know CSS has counters. I've never used them. How is this going to work? The current value of the named counter, if there is one. For every image, we increment the counter. Okay, so reset the counter on the parent. Then we give it a name. In this case, they're naming it count. Let's just call this total. We're resetting it back to 0. Then we want to increment that count for every list item. Total plus 1? How do we increment it? Oh, we just, by default, it's going to increment it by 1. Okay. And then on the last, or on the 5th child, we're going to set the content to be counter total. Color's red. Position absolute. We can use the after. Well, this is where we would say, we were saying display the actual list number, but I don't think we need to now that we have the counter. And then we can here do this. See what happens. Nothing. Top 0, left 0. The li has position relative. This has position absolute. There it is. It's happening, everyone. Okay. We want to center it. And I guess we also want maths. The counter needs to start, needs to be reset on the 5th item and then only increment for everyone after that. Because in this case, here's the issue though. If we have more items here, like let's say we had a bunch more images inside of li, how do we not display them in the grid? I guess we could just give them display none. Yeah, anything more than the 5th is display none. Because if we do this, it's going to add it there. I don't want it to be there. I want every other child after this one to be hidden. Is it 6+? That is not valid syntax. In +6. Yeah! Wow! Look at us. Okay, so basically, when you look at the source of the page, there potentially will be a bunch of them, and that is what's going to reset the counter. So what we can do is specifically on the 5th element, we reset the counter to 0, and then every item after that increments the count. So this will give us an actual count of the rest of them. So it should just say 1. I'm curious though, if I add more, is that going to increase the count? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There should be 5 more. No, it didn't. Okay, that's not quite right. I guess counter increment isn't working on this nth child here. Like this potentially isn't getting run for every other child. Did anybody confirm? Let's see. Krishan saying the count is only final within the last child's li, so that list item should function as the overlay above the 5th. I'm resetting on that. Yeah, because I want it. I guess I just guess it doesn't matter where we reset it because we can reset it at the top, but then for everyone after that, increase it. But that still doesn't do it. Yeah. Can you do maths? You can do subtract. Because we could take, yeah, just do the count minus 5. And then increment for every item. No, it's probably not valid syntax. Can I use calc here? No. In the counter function? Not valid. All right. I'm just gonna style it for now. Then we'll do all of the rest of them for like showing less and less images, and then we'll worry about getting that count correct. Okay, how do I get this thing in the center? I guess I could say width 100%, height 100%, display grid, place content center. First try. We'll set the font family to sans serif. All right, let's make it bold. All right, let's increase it even more. Okay, make it white. And does this need to have it looks like it doesn't have a background or anything like that, but it does not look good when that is the fifth image. Let's swap those two around. All right. Omo says reset at the fifth item, not the sixth, and increment on the sixth. It has a background with the opacity lowered. I don't think so. In the examples, we could do that though. Like we could actually set the background here to RGBA 0, 0, 0, 0.5, like that. But this needs to have the same border radius. We could add a nice little cursor pointer on there. Click for more. Oh, overflow clip, that's probably better because then we don't have to duplicate the border radius. No, this needs to be overflow hidden. Can you do overflow clip on the on this one? No. I'm just gonna put the border radius in both spots. Okay, let's get this number working. We would instead like to increment the total for each item after, and it doesn't increment. I mean, in the chat, let me know if this is right. So in plus 6 means this will match the 6th element and every element after that. I don't think it will. So I have some extras here. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it should say plus 5 automatically. So in plus 6 matches the 6 and above. I guess that's the other way to do it, is keep the counter increment for every item, but then reset it when you reach the 5th item. That's the way to go, huh? Maybe. It looks like the counter is not incrementing for display none. -5 won't work because we can't do maths, as far as I know. Can you? I don't think we can do maths on the total value. Yeah, display none is making it not. Oh, well, the mixed nuts in Twitch chat mentioned content paint. Does that mean it'll draw it? But yeah, my guess is if we do visibility hidden, then it's still there. Oh, yeah, that's the issue, is it now takes up space. But the issue now is with display none, the counter isn't getting incremented because it's not actually drawing it on the page. Okay, the thing is, I think we're kind of ignoring what Christian was mentioning to begin with, because we're not even using the last list item's number. Use the counter value of the last child as the count value for the dynamic data. Are we doing what you had in mind, Christian, or am I going down a completely different path? The count is not shared between LIs. The value is different with each LI, so you need to show the after within the last child. So do we just put every last item, we put it in specifically that spot? How do we place it in the here? How do we place it in a specific row and column? Grid row 2. Is that how that works? Grid row start 2. Grid row end 2. Visibility hidden changes the layout because it's still there. And grid column start is, how many columns do we have? 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it start is 5. We need to do the same thing for the last element. Okay. And then we need to set its column span to 2. Or not. What's going on here? Now, every one of these is in the same spot, which is what, so they're being rendered, they're just being rendered on top of each other. I want column end 7. Yeah. And then for the last child is where we'll display the count. Because it's going to be the thing that's drawn on top of all the others. Though we could actually just change the Z index to make that negative, and then the Z index of the last thing is on top of it. Yeah, sort of. Okay, we're getting closer. Let's reset the counter at the beginning and make sure like the total should be 10. Wait, what? We add the increment on this now that it's being displayed. I guess the issue is we would have to display it on the last one. Is it possible that we're displaying, because we have the total value on the 5th child, it's displaying the total as it was when the 5th child was rendered? So if we actually put all of this on the last child, Pranav says yes. Christiani says exactly. Okay, so we're displaying the last child only, and everything else is getting rendered on top of it. Then we don't need to do the z-index thing. Yeah, okay, this is it. And now we can reset the counter on the 5th child. That's it. That's not it. Because it's going to increment on itself. Okay, so it's +5. Check it out. If we add a bunch more in the HTML, so 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, now it should be +10. Yes! Yes! Okay, so now we take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now it should just be +1. Oh no, never mind. A lot. There's a lot more. Here. Now it's +1, and then it'll be +0. Okay, we did it. Christian says, great job. Oh, that was tricky. CSS got hands. It's true. Thank you, Christian. Omo says, I can sleep now. Pranav says, me too. B-Mine says, had to run for a bit. Here's how I would do areas if you were curious. You can remove the column and row templates if you wanted more intrinsic. Let's check it out. Yeah, this is what I was thinking earlier. Yeah, so this is it. You place each one in a specific... Yeah, I guess that'd be the way to go. Yes. And at this point, we're manually placing each of them anyways. Yeah, Omo, thank you for hanging out. Did I miss anything else? All the CSS stuff. Okay. But now we only display this if the counter value is greater than 0. So what we do is if the gallery card has n+6 children, then we put this on there. Did I do that first try? Okay, so now there's only 5 of them, But if I add a sixth one, it should say +1. It doesn't. Dang it. +2? No, it doesn't. Okay. It just removed it entirely. How does has work? Okay, this should still be working. It's +2. If gallery card has nth child. Okay. I made a site for this. I think is it has.syntax.fm? Yeah. So Wes tweeted out a bunch of CSS has examples, and then they did an episode on it, and then I made a mini site. So select an element if all of its children are empty. It's not what we want. We want select an element with a certain number of quantity queries. Here we go. Oh, this is what I want. So if it has 6 in, then after. Do I want n +6? Where do we see that has query? Oh no, so this is if a card is the nth child. CSS select element if it has more than n children. Search the web. If an article has an H2, select only the fifth element. Select all but the first 5. So this is what we're doing so far. N +6. We want to select the 5th. No, is it? Oh, I was like, is it working all of a sudden? No, we got rid of this. No, I basically I only want to display this +2 if there are 6 or more children of gallery card. So it says I probably wouldn't be able to do this even in JavaScript. Oh, I could do it in JavaScript. But yeah, this is tricky. At this point, we already shipped. Well, here's the thing: we did this one, We still have to do all of these. But this all has to do, this is like quantity queries because we're going to change the display, we're going to change the grid depending on the number of children. But I'm working backwards, so I only want to display this if we have 6 or more children. I guess we can ask ChatGPT. Let me log in. Okay, ChatGPT. How can I use the CSS has selector to select an element only if it has at least 6 children? This is what we did. Inth child 6 checks if the parent element contains at least 6 children. I thought we did this. Turn the background red. Has inth child 6. Yeah, I thought this is okay. Oh, just 6. If there is a 6th child. That's not working though. Nested CSS works differently. Well, I mean, we could do it without nested CSS because we could just, if we're not using nested CSS, then this would just be if a gallery card has 6 children, turn the background red. Why does it not work with nesting? Oh, do I have to use an ampersand? Yeah, okay. Well, that doesn't work either. We needed the ampersand. That's really weird. I thought the has would just apply to the other, but that makes sense. Yeah, so you need the ampersand if you're applying has with like modern nested CSS. Okay. That should do it then. So now if there is just one extra, it should say +1. If there are no extras, it shouldn't display at all. Whew. Great. Yeah, Ken says, nice. We did it. this is taking us longer than everything that we've done today. But with that has pseudo selector working, it's easy. It's easy. Then we can just do we can apply these styles based on the number of children. So if we have 4 children, we're going to change the grid entirely. Yeah, so if it has 4 but not 5, then we'll change the grid. Can you do it like this? Look at this. Yeah, so if the gallery card has 4 children, and it does not have 5 children. That means it has exactly 4 children. So Itakedo is asking, what is the ampersand? So we're using CSS with no preprocessor, and CSS nesting is a newer thing, and they introduced the ampersand for certain scenarios. But basically, we're using nesting to say gallery card has. Okay, so if there are only 4 but not 5, is the background red? Yes. And if there are 5, the background is our selector works. Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So now when there are 4, we have to just change where everything goes. And I think, yeah, also we can move all of these styles to when we have 5 or 6, I think. So I think I can do this, and this should still work for. So we have 5, 6, 7. So it should say +2. It does. Great. And I think what I also want is if it has 5 children, I'm going to move all of my column placement into there. Like all of this gets moved into if we have 5 children. Yeah. But then if we only have 4 children, now all bets are off. Now we have to place things accordingly. I think we'll also set the rows and columns based on the number of children as well. So if we has 5 children, that is what our rows and columns look like. But if we have 4 children, we're just going to have 2 rows, 2 columns, easy. Simple as. And that matches the spec. Yep. This is amazing. I'm glad we finally got here. It took me a while, but now if you have 5, it puts it there. If you have 6, it'll say +1. If you have 7, it'll say +2. But then if you move back down to 4, look at that. Okay, it's super easy after this. Now we just have another selector to say if there are 3 but not 4 children. Then we want, we're going to have to do a similar thing where we have 2 rows, 2 columns, but if you are the 3rd child, then you will span 2 columns. So this is if there are 3 but not 4 children, then the 3rd child spans 2 columns. Easy. Okay. If there are 2 children but not 3, that means we just want 2 columns, 1 row. So we'll go from 3 down to 2. Yep. That's it. And then lastly, if we only has 1 child, and not a second one, then 1 column, 1 row. Yeah, but then if I comment this one out, yeah, we did it. Remember, kids, CSS is a programming language. Thank you, Oscar, for the claps, who says, this is very readable after 5 months. And thank you. Yeah, thanks for that follow. Riley does Raldemans. Ooh. I think you can safely remove rows. It's not needed. Only columns may work. Yeah. Well, thank you for the claps, Adrelman. We've done it. Okay, so this is huge. This is only CSS, not a single line of JavaScript. Basically, the number of images inside of the element corresponds to how many rows and columns here. Well, I'll show you as I comment out. Well, how am I going to do this? Like this? It's going to be a little scrunched, but let me show you. So if we have one image, it displays it. If we have 2 images, they display as 2 columns. If we have 3 images, we get 2 on top, 1 on the bottom. If we have 4, then we get a grid like that. If we have 5, then we get 2 on top, 3 on the bottom. If we have 6, it just displays +1. And then any more than that, it increases the number there. Wow. We learned so much today. Actually, let's do a recap of what we learned, and then I'm going to get out of here. Day 2, manage memory with CSS. Yeah, we're going to be like allocating memory. No unit tests. I guess you could do like snapshot testing. Besides the challenge, do you think you should use JavaScript for something like this? It depends. The main reason to avoid it is to have less code that you're sending to the to your users, right? Because if all we need is CSS, it's potentially less code. It may or may not be less code. Honestly, it might be less JavaScript if we wrote JavaScript. But the other thing is also like progressive enhancement. Like maybe someone has JavaScript disabled. Now this thing works purely with CSS. Yeah. So learning this would keep you doing it this way or JavaScript. It depends. It depends. I think personally, it took me an hour and a half to get this working. I could do this with JavaScript in 5 minutes, right? So I guess it's also about like, well, what are you good at? I know some people that are really good at CSS and could probably do this in 5 minutes. I couldn't because I have not worked with CSS Grid this much. We did a whole lot of CSS has. We did a whole lot of pseudo selectors, and then also the CSS counter thing was super interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Mixnut says, I like the CSS way since it's painting using off threads. Yeah. Try and remove grid template rows. Let's see. Yeah, it still works because after 2 things are placed in the columns, it's going to wrap to the next row, and then we're setting the columns for that. Yeah. Yeah, I would say that is something that's a caveat of the way that we implemented this. So Oscar is saying you'll need JavaScript. You won't display all the images. So this is the issue with our implementation. When we have more than 5 images, we're still adding all of those images to the page in order to get the counter to increase, but we're just adding them all on top of each other in this very last cell. So yeah. But let's talk through our solution, then I'm going to get out of here. So first of all, we're using CSS Grid. The other thing, we're using list items here, but now that I think about it, because we're using the counter, we actually don't need list items. These could have just been divs as well, because the fun part here is CSS counters. I haven't yet found my own use case for CSS counters, but we're doing it here. So if you didn't know, CSS has the ability to create counters and then increase them as each element gets rendered. So in this example, they're creating a counter called count. It starts off as -1, And then for every li that matches this selector, they're increasing that count by 2. And then you can use that count in your CSS, like in the content here. So this is how they're able to number this as 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, purely with CSS. And so we're using count to count the number of images, so I can tell you how many more images there are than are displayed. So if we have just 5, there's no count. But if we add a 6th image, now we say there's 1 more image. You could display none of the images within... Okay, maybe you're going to work on that message. We tried doing display none earlier, but the issue was if it's not rendered on the page, then the counter doesn't get increased. Yeah, that's what we tried earlier, be mind. I mean, we could try it again. So right now it says +2, but what we did is anything after, don't display it, and then it doesn't increase. So the thing about the counter is that element needs to be rendered on the page, otherwise the counter doesn't increase. Yeah. Potentially we could do something with visibility, but yeah. But yeah, the counter's super cool. So basically what we did is we reset the counter. So for every list item on the page, we increment this counter called total, and by default it increments by 1. So every single list item, it's increasing by 1. But then we reset the counter on the 5th element. So we have a selector here for the 5th element, and we're resetting it to -1. So it'll increase to 1 on the 5th element itself, or sorry, it'll increase to 0 on the 5th element itself. And then the 6th, it'll be 1, 7th, it'll be 2. So basically by resetting it here, every element afterwards increases the counter, and that's how we can get that plus. And the way that we also got this working is every element afterwards is all getting rendered into that last cell. So they're always being placed in that exact same spot on the bottom right here. They're basically all just being stacked. And so the user can't actually tell that there are a bunch of images right here, but that's what we're doing to increase that number. So yeah, that's the bulk of the work there. And then we're using a pseudo selector on that after element. So after the last element, we can access that counter value and set it as the content. And so that's how we're actually displaying the text. We used CSS has a bunch. So here we're saying if there is a 6th child, meaning there's more than 5, then we need to display that count. And then the other thing is, if there are at least 5 children, then we specifically want this layout with 2 columns, 3 columns. And then the rest of these we just did. But basically, if there are 4 children, but there are not 5 children, that means there are exactly 4 children, then we change it to be 2 rows, 2 columns. So if we just have 4, then it just pops into 2 rows, 2 columns. And then we use that same trick for every other one, where if it has 3, then we change the grid. And then if it has 2, we change the grid. And then if it has 1, we change the grid. Okay, so that was day 1 of Advent of CSS. I'm not going to do the others, but it was a fun practice. I think the place where we increased our skills the most is probably CSS counter, and then also messing around with CSS has, and also using native CSS nesting, because this is something I don't do as often. And we had a bug where this wasn't working because we were missing that ampersand. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's a good point, Christian. Display the LIs, but don't display the image. Display none on the image, so that way they'll all just be scrunched up and there'll be none of them. Yeah. React 19 is stable? Would you look at that? I'm happy to hear that, because Next.js was using a non-stable version. Wow, okay. That's good to know. Who needs React? We got CSS. Yeah. Yeah, so Vivian is mentioning, do a display none only on image. Yeah, that would have worked too. Okay, I'm going to get out of here. Thanks everyone for hanging out. I'll remind you why we were here to begin with was for Debug December. There's actually a ton of these like code challenge websites that you can do. in the month of December. So Advent of CSS is the one that we just did, which I'll say it was a struggle for me. I spent probably, almost 2 hours just on that one challenge, but that's me. I need to work on my CSS. We also did Advent of TS, which helps you to learn and practice TypeScript. And in the day 5 challenge, we got to do generics, so you can learn about the basics of generics. And then what we worked on at the beginning was Debug December. So this is put on by Sentry, and these are just little challenges where you have to find the bug in the code. And you still have time because they do giveaways on the 6th, the 12th, the 18th, and the 24th of December. So you have little over 24 hours to complete up to day 6, and then you'll be entered to a raffle, and you'll be able to win one item from the Syntax shop. So you could pick a t-shirt or a fingerboard or a skateboard deck or a hat if you complete this and then get entered into the raffle. If you want to see me do Advent of Code, follow me over on Coding Garden. So youtube.com/@codinggarden. This weekend, I'm going to go live and work on the first few days of Advent of Code, because I have not touched Advent or even looked at Advent of Code this year. And I'm just going to do them all in one go, starting probably Saturday morning. So follow over on Coding Garden if you'd like to watch that. And I stream here on Twitch as well. In Golang, no, I'm going to do it in Dino, because I heard that you get stickers if you do Advent of Code with Dino. But I stream over here on Twitch on Coding Garden as well. All right. Thanks everybody for hanging out. Do Debug December. Have a wonderful rest of your week and weekend. And if you're going to attend, I'll see you over there on Coding Garden. We will do a raid on Twitch. So if you're on YouTube and you want to join the raid, head over to here. A raid is basically where we take all the viewers of this stream and then send them over to some other stream. So that's what we're going to do. Stick around for that. And yeah, stay awesome. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.